Hey, today we're dealing with vertex and standard form, and we talked about this a bit on Friday. Okay, so it'll be kind of a continuation of that. Before we get too far into today's lesson, I want you to take out Friday's assignment. Let's go ahead and score that up. Make sure that we understood what we talked about Friday. Okay. Hey. Vertex and standard form, comparing the two and going back and forth in between each of them is what we're doing today. So vertex form, let's quick review. Vertex form is y equals a a times quantity x minus h quantity squared all plus k, and remember hk is your vertex. Okay, yeah, and who cares, right? hk. Okay, so it gives us our vertex with our hk value, and it gives us our a term, okay, which helps us to figure out how far we go up or down when we move over 1 unit from our vertex. Okay, that is pretty darn blurry. Okay, standard form of a quadratic is y equals a x squared plus bx plus c, okay, and in this case, this a and this a, those are the same thing. Okay, keep that in mind when you're going between the two. They're the same. HK, remember, tells us the vertex. Okay, one thing to recall about vertex form, there should always be a 1 in front of that x. Okay, if there's any other number in front of that x, then it's truly not in vertex form, and this is not h. Okay, remember we said that one way to figure out what h is to set x minus h equal to 0. Okay, and solve from there. That tells us what h is. Okay, any questions so far? Other thing we talked about last week, finding the vertex of a graph. When the equation of a function is written in standard form, so when it's in that ax squared plus bx plus c form, we could find h by doing the opposite of b over 2a. That's what we worked on Friday. Okay, we added that piece in. To find our k, we then substitute this into that equation to find k. So remember, h is a special x value. It's a special x, and k is a special y. They are still xy values, though. Okay, so once we know this x value, this special x value of h, if we put that back in to our equation up here, we find k, that special y value. All right, and remember the equation for the axis of symmetry is x equals h. Okay, once we find h, if we say x equals that number, that's our equation of the axis of symmetry. So if you recall our graphs, when you're looking at a graph of a parabola, this is my vertex at the ordered pair hk. This line right here, our axis of symmetry, is at the order or at the equation x equals whatever that h value is. Okay, they're the same. Okay, any questions there? It should all be a review. The goal for us today is to be able to go back and forth between standard and vertex form. Okay? Let's try some of these. This is on page 212, but what's the equation for the axis of symmetry of that graph? Get a minute to work on it. Axis of symmetry, remember, is just x equals h. So if I find h, which we know is the opposite of b over 2a, okay, there's a, there's b, there's c. So in this case, the opposite of 10 is negative 10 over 2 times a, which is 2. So we get negative 10 over 4, which is negative 5 over 2. Make sure you reduce. So the equation for the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 5 halves. Okay. Questions on it? How many got it? Okay. So if I'm going to apply that for a graph, I may have an equation that looks like this, a bit different equation. The first thing to do to graph this is to write it in vertex form. Okay, so the first thing you need to be able to do is find h. That'll give us the first value of our coordinate for our vertex of hk. Okay, that'll give us our h value. And then after you find h, you'll also have the axis of symmetry. Remember, that's x equals whatever our h value is. So, looking at this one, I want you to right now get it in vertex form. So that'll help you find, or help you to be able to graph it. You work together. You can use, when you graph it today, you can just use one of the grids off of the paper you picked up on the way in. Okay, did everyone get h equals 3? Yeah. Yep. Now, once we find that 3, how do we find k? Okay, we have to plug that 3 in for x here. So now we have negative 2 times 3 squared plus 12 times 3 minus 9. That's equal to our k value now. That's special y value. Okay? That's 9. Make sure you square the 3 first and then multiply by negative 2, not the other way. So that's 9 times negative 2, or negative 18. Okay, if you ended up getting negative or positive 36 right there, you messed up, or negative 36. You multiply these two. Okay, and we get 36 here, minus 9. So our k value is? 9. It is 9. K equals 9. Okay? So there's 9. Axis of symmetry is just whatever h is. Okay, we plot it, 3, 9. Actually, let me pause right there. Are there any questions up to there? How many were able to find hk? Okay, so we've got 3, 9. It's opening downward. It's a negative a value. Okay, so put in your axis of symmetry. Make sure you label your vertex and axis of symmetry on your graph, please. So label your axis of symmetry, x equals 3. Okay. From there, our a term is negative 2. So at the beginning here, when we go over 1, we're going down 2. We always go down or up, whatever our a term is on the first one. So over 2, down 4 times a, or 4 times negative 2, which is 8. So we drop down to 1. Okay. And we only need 5 points. I'm going to call it good right there. If you went more, I think you probably could have got one more on here, right? Could have got down here at negative 9. Is that right? Go over 3 and down 9 times 2, or 18. So yeah. Kaylin's telling her that, right? Yes. So Kaylin, you talking. That was my hint to tell you to be quiet. First one, you didn't take the hint. But you talking makes it tough for me to focus, and I lose my concentration like really easy. All right. There we go. So if you want that other point, you can. Any questions there? We're cranking through this stuff pretty fast here. Okay. Next piece. I want you to write number 3 off the example side in vertex form. Okay? Give it a go. Okay, to write in vertex form, we need to know h, we need to know k, which are vertex, and we need to know the axis of symmetry. Okay? So in this case, our h value, opposite of b over 2a, this is b. Okay? So we get 8 over -4 or -2. And that means x equals -2 for axis of symmetry. Our k value, when we put that h back in, -2 times -2 quantity squared minus 8 times -2 gives us 4 times -2 or -8. And this becomes plus 16 or k equals 8. Okay? K equals 8 here. All right. So, we get our 8. Did anyone try factoring there?
I could have.
Like you could have looked at this problem like this, and the common factor is -2. Could have taken out -2 x. Well, we'll leave the x in there, but okay, if you would have taken out your -2, that would have given you x squared, right? Minus or plus 4. 4x, excuse me. Okay, did anyone try factoring? We could have kept working through this and tried to get it that way. Probably I didn't think anyone would look at it like that, especially since we're going with this. So let's keep it here. From this, if we have our HK, we have our axis of symmetry. We're not graphing it, so technically we don't really need this. We have y equals a, -2, so a is the same, times x minus h. So in this case, minus -2 is plus 2 squared, all plus 8. Okay, so those of you who got that, okay, you could have started working through this to get to that form as well, but we're going to leave it at that. Okay? Any questions on it? Lily?
Okay, so the one that we just did, like in our notes,
Uh-huh.
why did we, because we got k that was 9, positive 9, why did we keep it negative, like -9, when we put it in vertex one?
On the previous problem?
Yeah.
So on this guy here? We figured out k was positive 9. It has nothing to do with the c value.
Okay.
These aren't the same thing.
Yeah. That's
Okay, so when we put in h, when we put in 3, it actually gave us 9 out. These have no bearing on each other.
okay.
Okay, good question. Okay. Why don't you guys try that one there? Number 4. Huh? Well, no, vertex form. Okay, we need to go to vertex form, we need to know A, H, and K. We know A is 3. We can find H by opposite of B over 2A. So -18 over 2 times 3, or 6, which is -3. Okay, everyone get that so far? Yeah? To find K, we plug in H to x squared, so we get 3 times -3 squared plus 18 times -3 minus 1, so negative times negative is positive. 9 times 3 or 27 plus 18 times -3 is -54 minus 1 gives us -27 minus 1 or -28. Okay? Any questions so far? So we get y equals 3, that's our A, times x minus h, which means plus 3 in this case, squared, minus 28. Any questions? Okay, well, let's try this one then. Tell your neighbor, is that in vertex form? Yes, no, and why or why not?
Because there's a coefficient on the x.
Okay, who says yes? No? Why is it not? Yes.
There's a coefficient on the x.
Good, there's a coefficient on the x. All right, yes.
Does that mean we have to factor?
No, we're right now what I want to do in this case, I want you to write that in standard form. Write it in standard form for me. Okay, we get so good at going from vertex or standard to vertex. Sometimes going backwards is a little tougher. So just remember that the first thing you want to do is expand this. That is squared. That means you have two of them. This piece, that means you have two. Okay? So if you made that mistake again or you didn't remember that, you need to make a note of it. All right? So from here, you're multiplying this by this chunk by this chunk. I would multiply the chunks first. Okay? 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. Negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Okay, so I end up with 9x squared minus 6x plus 1. That is that chunk. I still have a minus 5 at the end. I still have a times 2 on this quantity right there. Any questions on that? Then it's still y equals. Okay, so now 2 9x squareds is 18x squared. 2 negative 6's is negative 12x. And 2 positive 1's is 2. Minus 5. So y equals 18x squared minus 12x.
You forgot the x squared.
Thank you. Minus 3. Anyone get it? Okay. How many know where you made your mistake or get stuck? Okay. Key piece. Now that we have that, any questions on it?
Yes, sir.
I want you to now write it in vertex form. Change it to vertex form. Oh. Before some of you go down the wrong trail, remember the things you need for vertex form. What's one thing you need? A. What else? H and K, your vertex. Those three things. It wasn't three. 18.
That's a big number.
What is H?
1/3.
Holy moly. What's K?
Negative 5.
Wow. You guys were able to do that in your head?
Yep.
Wow.
I did it on the paper, but
So this is 1/9 times 18, or 2.
18 over 9.
minus 4.
And that's, yeah, 1/3 of 12, or 4. Okay. So we end up with 5.
Negative 5.
Negative 5.
Oh yeah, negative 5. Okay. So we get y equals a times x minus 1/3 squared minus 5. Right? Now compare that back to where we were. This is the original problem. Notice how the vertex form looks different, and notice the similarities. Yeah.
Okay, so when you told us to first, I put in whatever, so I set the 3x minus 1 to 0, and I got x equals 1/3. Is that just a coincidence, or?
No, that would have worked as well. So right here, if I would have said from this point, if I would have initially said put this in vertex form, hopefully everyone recognized it wasn't, you could have set this equal to 0. You could have said 3x minus 1 equals 0 and get x equals 1/3. Okay? And that would have become that value. And then you could have plugged that in to your equation and found k. K doesn't change, though. They're still the same. The only thing that's affected here. The only problem is you don't know h. Okay? So you don't know what h is, and there's a way to figure it out here. I mean, you square the 3 and double it, and you get 18. Okay? You could go that route, but this is our standard form, or vertex form, excuse me. So, any questions there? Your assignment, let's take a look at it. You're on the, should be on the mixed side. Cross out the example. I'm not going to do the example. Okay. Yep. So mixed side. You guys think all?
No.
No, I'm thinking no.
Yes.
Teresa, do you have a life?
Okay. Let's do this. Let's change some of these instructions. First, 3 through 26, this portion here, this section, I want you to add then, write in vertex form. So after you find, okay, the vertex and the axis of symmetry, I want you to write it in vertex form. All right? Your assignment is going to be, we can cross this out up here. You're going to do the first column. Okay? Cross all this out over here. Okay? So, you'll have to graph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. If you really understand the graphing now, you should look at this and know that that's a pretty easy one to graph. Number 39 should be an extremely easy one to graph. Those should be easy. Okay? If there is not a B term, it's easy. I'll say this a lot this chapter, but B be the problem. Quadratics are easy until you put B in there. B be the problem. Okay? All right. Here we go. Go at it.